Some moments arrive with the weight of forever, carrying the knowledge that they will never come again. Simon Cowell had judged countless performances over 2 decades, but nothing could have prepared him for the woman who walked onto the America's Got Talent stage that warm June evening, moving with the deliberate grace of someone who knew her time was measured not in years, but in weeks. Her name was Linda Martinez, and she was 45 years old. She moved slowly but with quiet dignity, each step carefully placed, as if her body was conserving energy for what mattered most. She wore a flowing burgundy dress that hung loosely on her thin frame, and a colorful silk scarf was wrapped elegantly around her head, covering the hair loss from chemotherapy she'd stopped months ago. Her skin had the translucent quality that comes with serious illness, but her dark eyes burned with fierce determination. The audience applauded warmly as she positioned herself at center stage, but there was something in Linda's bearing that immediately commanded a different kind of attention. She didn't smile or wave at the crowd. Instead, she looked directly toward a specific section of the audience, where 2 teenagers sat in the front row, a 12-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl who looked exactly like her. They watched their mother with a mixture of pride and heartbreak that was impossible to miss. Simon sat at the judges' table, his usual confident posture shifting as he observed Linda. 20 years of experience had taught him to read people quickly, and everything about this woman's careful movements, her deliberate breathing, her intense focus on her children in the audience, told him a story before she even spoke. The host approached with his customary warmth, but his smile became more gentle as he got closer. Recognizing immediately that this wasn't going to be an ordinary audition. "Welcome to America's Got Talent. Please tell us your name." "Linda Martinez," she said, her voice clear but carrying a slight breathiness that spoke of lungs working harder than they should. "I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And what brings you here tonight, Linda?" Linda's gaze moved back to her children in the audience, then to the host. When she spoke, her voice remained steady, but there was an undercurrent of urgency that made everyone lean forward. "I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer," she said simply, without preamble or softening. "I was diagnosed 18 months ago. The doctors originally gave me 6 months. I've beaten their timeline, but we're coming to the end now. They've given me perhaps 6 to 8 weeks." The audience drew a collective breath. This wasn't the kind of revelation anyone expected, but Linda continued with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who had made peace with an impossible situation. "Those are my children," she said, gesturing toward the front row. "Miguel is 12 and Sophia is 15. They've watched me fight this disease for over a year. They've seen me sick from chemo, weak from treatments, bald from medications. But tonight, I want them to see their mother strong one more time." At the judges' table, all conversation had stopped. One of the judges brought her hand to her heart, already moved to tears. The theater had fallen into that profound silence that only comes when people understand they're witnessing something far beyond entertainment. "I stopped chemotherapy 3 months ago," Linda continued. "Not because I gave up, but because I wanted to spend my remaining time living, not just surviving. I wanted to be present for my children, to give them memories of their mother that aren't about hospitals and medicine." Simon stood up slowly from his chair, not with dramatic purpose, but with the quiet recognition that what was about to happen required his complete presence and respect. "What will you be performing for us tonight?" the host asked gently. "My Way" by Frank Sinatra, Linda replied, her voice growing stronger. "Because I want my children to know that even though my life is ending, I lived it on my terms. I fought this disease with everything I had, and I'm facing the end the same way, with my head held high. She looked directly at Miguel and Sophia again. I want them to remember that their mother didn't just survive. She lived. She loved. She chose courage even when she was scared. The backing track began, the familiar opening notes of the iconic song filling the theater. Linda gripped the microphone with both hands, and when she began to sing, her voice carried a power that seemed impossible given her physical condition. And now, the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. The audience was immediately transfixed. This wasn't just a performance. This was a woman's declaration of how she had chosen to live and how she was choosing to die. Linda sang with the kind of raw authenticity that can't be taught or practiced, only earned through facing the ultimate test. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. Simon began walking onto the stage, slowly and respectfully. He stopped at the edge of the performance space, simply witnessing this profound act of love and courage. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway. Linda's voice grew stronger as she moved through the verses, as if the act of singing was literally giving her life force. She sang about choices made, paths taken, regrets that didn't matter in the face of what truly counted. And more, much more than this. I did it my way. At the judges' table, tears were flowing freely. In the audience, there wasn't a dry eye to be found. Miguel and Sophia sat holding hands, watching their mother transform her farewell into something beautiful, something powerful, something they would carry with them forever. Regrets? I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. Linda sang about the things that mattered and the things that didn't, about facing uncertainty with dignity, about making peace with an ending no one wants but everyone must eventually face. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. Her voice soared on the word exemption, and everyone in the theater understood that they were witnessing someone who had refused to let disease define her final chapter. She had taken control of her narrative, written her own ending. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. The line carried special weight for a woman who had been given a timeline by doctors, but had chosen to exceed it through sheer force of will and love for her children. And more, much more than this, I did it my way. As Linda reached the final chorus, her voice gained a power that transcended her physical limitations. She was singing not just about how she had lived, but about how she was choosing to die, surrounded by love, creating one last beautiful memory for her children. Yes, it was my way. The final note rang out, pure and strong, a declaration of triumph over circumstances that would have broken many people. Linda held the note until it naturally faded, then stood in the sudden silence, breathing heavily but smiling for the first time all evening. The theater erupted in the longest, most emotional standing ovation in the show's history. But Linda's eyes were only on Miguel and Sophia, who were crying but also smiling, seeing their mother exactly as she wanted to be remembered, strong, beautiful, and completely in control of her own story. Simon approached her, his own face wet with tears he made no attempt to hide. "Linda," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "In 20 years of judging talent, I have never witnessed anything more powerful than what you just gave us." He looked out at the audience, then back at Linda. "You didn't just perform a song. You showed everyone watching what real courage looks like, what it means to face the impossible with grace and dignity. Linda nodded, still catching her breath. "I want my children to know," she said, speaking into the microphone so everyone could hear, "that their mother lived fully, loved completely, and faced the end without fear because she knew she had given them everything she had to give." Simon walked to the golden buzzer without hesitation and placed his hand on it. "This isn't about judging a performance," he announced to the theater. "This is about honoring the most courageous woman I've ever met and making sure her children know that the whole world witnessed their mother's strength tonight." He pressed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded from the ceiling, the lights turned gold, and the music played. But the atmosphere was unlike any other golden buzzer moment. It felt sacred, like a celebration of life itself. Miguel and Sophia rushed onto the stage and collapsed into their mother's arms. The three of them stood together in the golden light, holding each other as if they could stop time itself. After the camera stopped rolling, the celebration continued for over 2 hours. Linda was surrounded by audience members, judges, and crew members who all wanted to thank her for sharing something so profound with them. Simon arranged for professional recording equipment to capture more of Linda's songs for her children. He also quietly arranged for specialists to be available to Miguel and Sophia, understanding that they would need support in the coming weeks. Before she left the theater, Linda spoke with Simon privately. "Thank you for giving me this platform," she said. "Tonight wasn't about fame or winning. It was about showing my children that even in the darkest circumstances, we can choose to create something beautiful." Linda's audition aired 3 weeks after she passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by family. Miguel and Sophia gave permission for it to be shown, knowing their mother would have wanted her message to reach as many people as possible. The episode became the most watched America's Got Talent moment in the show's history. More importantly, it started conversations about dignity in dying, about making the most of limited time, about the different ways love expresses itself when faced with ultimate loss. Miguel and Sophia established a foundation in their mother's name to support families dealing with terminal illness. They continued to speak publicly about their mother's courage, sharing her message that we all have the power to choose how our story ends. Because that night on the America's Got Talent stage, Linda Martinez didn't just sing a song. She proved that facing death with courage is one of the most powerful gifts we can give to those we love, that our final chapters can be our most beautiful, and that true strength isn't about avoiding the end. It's about embracing it on your own terms. That's not entertainment. That's the sound of someone choosing to live fully right up until the moment they have to say goodbye. And it's the most powerful music in the world.